Hi, you are listening to the Charles-Bonnet Syndrome podcast. My name is Shaimond Foy, and today I have a guest host. His name is Dr. Gary Cusick. He's no stranger to the podcast. And today's special guest is Sam Seavey. He's an online health advocate for the blind community and owner of the popular YouTube channel, The Blind Life. So how you doing today, Sam?
I'm good, Shaimond. Thank you so much for having me, and Gary as well. I'm glad to be here.
Good to see you again.
Yeah, we're so glad to have you. We appreciate all the things that you're doing for the visually impaired community. And I look forward to getting into a lot of those things and hearing a little bit more about your journey. So I understand that at the age of 11, you were diagnosed with Stargardt's disease. So can you talk a little bit about that condition and about your journey?
Sure. Yeah. So Stargardt's disease is a juvenile form or an early onset form of macular degeneration. So most people are probably familiar with, their grandparents maybe had age-related macular degeneration where they started to lose vision in their central vision. That's essentially what happened to me, but I was 11 when I was diagnosed. And my particular condition, Stargardt's, it's an autosomal recessive hereditary disease. So it's called an IRD, inherited retinal disease. So that means that both my parents had the recessive gene, even though they didn't manifest any kind of vision loss. They were both carriers of the gene. And sure enough, myself and my sister, we won the low vision lottery, and we both got diagnosed right around the same age, right around age 11. She's a couple years older than me. But it's characterized as, like I said, central vision loss. And because humans use their center vision for detail, we don't have detail vision. So even though I can tell that there's someone standing in front of me, I may even be able to tell if it's, tall person, short person, male, female, long hair, that sort of thing. I will never be able to see their face, the detail of their faces. I can't read. I don't have detail vision for driving. So it's limiting in a lot of ways. I am very thankful, though. I do have my peripheral, and my peripheral is still pretty good. But we also use center vision for colors, identifying colors. A lot of our light receptive cells are in our center vision. So I'm terrible at night. I'm blind as a bat at night. And it is a progressive condition, so it will continue to get worse throughout my life. Although I guess it does tend to plateau for a lot of people. It tends to plateau at a certain point.
And that was my next question. Is it going to get worse? And are there any treatments that can prevent it from getting worse?
Yes, it will always get worse. Although, like I said, some people tend to stop or it slows down. I'm very fortunate that my rate of vision loss progression has been very slow. Knock on wood, it's been very slow and pretty steady too, pretty even. I have a lot of friends who are my age and diagnosed around the same age, and they have much more vision loss. My sister has much more vision loss than I do. And then some people will have big jumps all of a sudden, big, experiencing a lot of vision loss all at once. I never had that, thankfully. But as far as treatments, there, yes and no. So there, it is incurable currently at this time. There's no cure. There's no official treatments right now, but, and I just got back from a conference in Chicago with the Foundation Fighting Blindness, and they talked a lot about all the research, clinical trials, and there's a lot of clinical trials going on right now for Stargardt's. And for the first time since I was diagnosed way back in like 86, there is some real positive hope out there for treatments. Now, all the treatments are really designed, as you say, to kind of slow down or stop the progression of the disease. But there are some treatments out there that are showing to potentially regain vision, which is kind of crazy. It's an exciting time.
Yeah,
That's
Dr. Skorkin's book says they're investigations for gene replacement therapy right now.
Yes, yeah, gene replacement. There's, things that, well, my condition, Stargardt's, it's the body's inability to process vitamin A. So vitamin A builds up as kind of a waste product on my eye, and that's causes the damage. So there's people looking at, well, what if we replace vitamin A with a synthetic vitamin A that will stop the body's reaction to it. So there's all kinds of, they're coming at it from a bunch of different angles and directions, and there's a lot of potential.
Yeah. Do you know what visual cycle modulation is?
If you said it in a layman's term, I probably would.
Okay. No. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I only know that because I'm looking at the book right now.
Oh, you're cheating. Come on now.
Oh, yeah.
But you wanted to speak on that, what you just asked, Gary?
Visual cycle modulation? Oh, no. I don't know what that is.
Good. I don't feel
Now
so
you
bad.
piqued our interest. I'm sure people are gonna, Google that and
Oh,
find
visual
out more about that. There's so much to learn. The mind is so complex. The body, the eyes, the brain is just so much. And once you find one thing out, you find out something else years later. It's just like
Mhm.
evolving, ongoing research. Is really amazing.
Well, and I people kind of ask, well, surely, why can't we cure blindness? We've got the most amazing doctors and science out right now. Why can't we cure it? And I don't think people understand how many different ways that vision can be impaired in the human body. And not only that, but a lot of that, a majority of that doesn't even have to do with the eye. It's something that happens behind the eye. That a lot of blindness is caused in the brain. And so it's incredibly complicated. And in fact, when you think about it in those terms, it's amazing that anybody is born with perfect vision. With all the different ways that something could go wrong, it's amazing that anybody can see perfectly.
That is well said. And as I was finding more information about the vision and how the brain works and how it works with the eyes, I was saying, why can't we just replace the visual cortex or certain parts of the nervous system or the brain? And as I was doing research and talking to doctors about that, they were saying that it's very difficult. You just can't really do that. Or can you even do an eye replacement? And they were saying, yeah, you can put an eye in there, but you can't connect it to the rest of the nerves and all the things that make it work. So who knows? But I like the gene therapy and the fact that they are doing some research. Some researchers and doctors are doing some things to slow the condition down. One thing that came to my mind is, since you actually have a gene and maybe both parents have to give this gene to the child or however that works, is it something that you can do with like a blood test and then maybe start giving vitamin A or some kind of way to treat it like while you're still in your mother's womb? But that's a whole nother episode, and that's something totally
Yeah.
different. It's always good to think outside the box. Don't count yourself out before you even try something.
Yeah. 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 If you want to talk about that kind of stuff, you're gonna have to find someone much smarter than I.
Yeah. The 18 years I spent at the McDowell Center, Sam, is like there was just one more new way of being blind that I'd never heard of before somebody would come in with.
Oh yeah. 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 So I work at a nonprofit. I'm sure we'll get to talking about this here soon. But whenever I have a new intake and I am filling out my form, we have listed all the major types of blindness on the form just to make it easier. And I finally had to come to my IT guy. And I was like, we have to put an other box at the bottom of this very long list because there's constantly someone's coming in and they're like, oh no, you're not even on the list. We need to mark you as other.
That's amazing. One other thing I would like to get into before we pivot a little bit, since macular degeneration is so common, are there a lot of different types of macular degeneration? And is Stargardt's one of the more common forms of it?
So there are a lot of different types of macular degeneration because macular degeneration is more a result. You can think of it that way. And there's a lot of different things that can cause that result. So it's essentially just the degeneration of the macula or the breaking down of the center of the retina. And so a lot of things can cause that. Stargardt's can cause that, age-related macular degeneration, and there's two main types of that. There's the dry and the wet. The wet is caused by bleeding in the eye, which causes damage. Retinitis pigmentosa, some of those types of RP will affect the center vision. Most of RP affects the peripheral, but some types do affect the center vision. And so that essentially is macular degeneration. So yeah, there are a ton of different types, and macular degeneration, or MACD as I call it to make it sound even cooler than it is.
Mhm.
It's one of the leading causes of vision loss in the world. So luckily, because of that, there are a lot of people trying to figure out how to fix it.
One thing that's so inspirational about you, to me, is the fact that you have a YouTube channel, and we all know that YouTube is visual, and you have to have cameras and lights and computers and editing software, and you have a visual impairment. And that's really inspirational to me to know that you can have what some people may view a challenge or a disability or setback, and you didn't let that stop you from becoming a really successful YouTuber that's going on to help thousands, if not more, maybe millions of people. Can you talk a little bit about that journey? What made you decide to start your YouTube channel?
Sure, yeah. It all started back in 2013. I was actually, well, it even started further back than that. My When my daughter was born, we decided that I would be the stay-at-home dad because my wife has a fantastic job and it just made more sense. And so when my daughter started to go finally start going attending school, I was super bored. I was just at home all by myself, and I was like I was always looking for something to do. In a long story, I won't get into it. I got hooked up with this gentleman down in Texas who had a channel where he would teach people how to modify Android phones, essentially hack your Android phone and unlock all the possibilities that Android has. And so I loved his channel. I was learning a lot, and he needed somebody to take over making the videos because his brick and mortar store where he repaired phones and stuff was taking off, and he just didn't have time for it anymore. So I applied for the job. I figured, well, maybe this is something that I can do in my house, and I could adapt the job to suit my particular needs with my vision loss. I'm a big proponent of do the job you want to do and we'll make it work.
Yeah.
And so I applied for the job and I got the job. And so I started making videos on his channel. And I did that for about 2 or 3 years. Built that channel up to, we actually started a brand new channel, a second channel that I was making content for, but I built that up to about 10,000 subscribers, which in
Wow.
2011, 2012 was pretty respectable. That was a successful channel. And so during that time though, I would every now and then I would make a video about some type of accessible app or some type of accessibility setting that I was using on my phone, and I got a lot of positive feedback from those videos because nobody knew that I was visually impaired. I never said it. I was making videos about phones. There was no reason to talk about it. And so I get a lot of positive feedback from the community about those videos and people thinking, oh, I didn't even know my phone could do this. I didn't know, this app even existed. This is awesome. So I thought, well, maybe there's a need for information about, vision loss of some sort or adaptive equipment or something. I don't know. I decided to search on YouTube one day for Stargardts and to see what was out there. And at the time, this was 2013, there wasn't any videos of people talking about living with Stargardts. There were a couple doctors talking about it, but I was really looking for just real life experiences, how people were coping with it. And so I thought, you know what? I've been making videos for this channel for a couple years. I knew I wasn't going to be doing it much longer. He had already expressed that he was wanting it to wrap up soon. So I was like, I'm going to need something to do, shift gears. I've been making videos. I know how to do it. I should start my own channel talking about vision loss and just sharing my life. Up at that point was almost 30 years of living with vision loss. And so I started December of 2013. I created my channel, which at the time was called The Blind Spot. It was an homage to my central vision loss, but it also represented an actual spot on the internet where people could come and learn about vision loss. And that's how it all started. At the beginning, it was just a hobby, just something fun to do to occupy my time. I had no real direction or real goals of growing the channel into anything other than it was just something fun to do. And it took several years before even before I hit 1,000 subscribers, and then I realized that it could actually turn into something cool, and that I needed to start taking it seriously.
I just want to thank you for it because I am a caregiver for someone that has a visual impairment. And whenever I type something in like, how do you sing AI or whatever it may be, usually your channel comes up right to the top. And so it's very, very helpful for people that either are caregivers or, more importantly, people themselves that have the condition, that have certain eye conditions, that can have a resource and a place to go. Technology is changing so much. And you talk about technology, among other things. What are some things that you are excited about as far as technology goes for the visually impaired, as far as tech?
For the visually impaired, I mean, there's different levels of vision loss, obviously. And so, the technology that I use isn't necessarily going to be the same that someone who is more profoundly visually impaired than I am is going to be using. Some things there's some overlap, but some is not. So for me and my basic community of low vision users, really excited. I mean, video magnification has been out for decades. I used a large video magnifier going through school, but they're all getting smaller, more powerful, more features. I really think if we can crack this battery issue that humans have and start to develop more smaller, more powerful batteries, that's going to change a lot of it and improve a lot of things, because some things are just too bulky right now because of the battery systems. But video magnification, and then the thing that's really gotten me excited. It's hard to get me excited on technology anymore because I've seen it all. I've reviewed everything, and things that are coming out, it's just more, a newer version of something that's already been out. So I don't tend to get too excited about it. I appreciate the updates and that sort of thing, but the thing that's really gotten me excited lately is the integration of AI into assistive technology. And, despite what people might think about robots taking over the world and all that, it's truly become an amazing tool for the blind community. Just the amount of information, just a wide variety of situations where AI can be helpful for us is incredible. So that's probably the thing that's gotten me the most exciting.
Yeah, it's amazing what AI can do. And I did another podcast interview where I was talking with someone about technology, and I was saying, if you were alive maybe 150, 200 years ago, you didn't have Zoom, and if there may have not even been psychologists back then, and like, how could you actually get the support that you needed? And now you can join a Zoom call and you can interact with other people. You can go to your YouTube channel, which is The Blind Life, by the way, which I mentioned before, but certainly talk
Yeah.
about that some more. And or you can even go to this podcast, the Charles Bonnet Syndrome podcast, and there's so many resources and things out there. So you're not alone, and you have some things that can definitely help you. And there's ways for people to just connect and share their stories. So it's really
Hmm.
amazing what and that AI is really, really powerful. And I actually agree with you. I mean, there's some concerns, and I'm sure we'll address those together as a society and as regulators and stuff. But it is definitely bringing on a lot of good, and it's helping people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, I can't help but think, the concerns that we have, it's really because we've been conditioned through like all those action movies from the 80s that, we're going to create sentient robots and they're going to overthrow us and take over. It's like if we hadn't seen those things and grown up with those movies, would we be as concerned? I don't know. It's hard to say.
That's an excellent point. When I was doing some more research about you, I read somewhere that you didn't fully accept your visual impairment until you were in your 30s. Can you talk a little bit about that journey? Because that's actually a common thing for not just people with visual impairments, but we'll stick to that for this podcast. But when people have a visual impairment, it's difficult for them to make that adjustment and sometimes accept it. So, can you talk about that journey and how it's been for you and what helped you get to that point where you were able to accept it?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. It is extremely common. I would say it happens 100% of the time that someone loses something, and they go through those stages of grief because they've lost something. And so we talk about, where I work and on the channel, I talk about how it's perfectly normal and it's okay. It's okay to go have those feelings. The goal is to not kind of live there. You don't want to just unpack your bags and stay there. We want to address that, face it, and then keep moving forward. And I was probably in my early 30s before I fully accepted that I'm visually impaired and there's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't mean I'm less than someone else. Because I grew up in, like I said, I was diagnosed in 86. I was 11 years old. So I went through all of high school being visually impaired, all of dating, all of, working, early working as a 20-year-old, all of that, partying with my friends, everything was done as a visually impaired individual. And when, especially back then, you didn't want to be different. You didn't want to stand out. You wanted to conform. You wanted to be like everyone else, especially as a teenager, early 20s. And so I hid it. I pretended that I was, quote unquote, normal like everyone else. And not really realizing as a 20-year-old that nobody's normal. Everybody has their issues. But
Hmm.
Mostly
I,
men.
Good point.
yeah, but I pretended just like everyone else and nothing was wrong. And it wasn't really until I met my wife and we were dating that she gave me some tough love and said, "Knock it off, you're being ridiculous." And helped me to realize that yes, I was. Because and it's exhausting. It is exhausting trying to pretend to be something you're not and to try to fight who you really are. We would be in a restaurant and I would kind of look around. And like I said, I've got peripheral. Like I don't have central vision, but I've got peripheral. So I can tell if somebody's looking in my direction or, staring at me or something. I'd look around and like, okay, no, nobody's looking, nobody's looking. And then I'd use my magnifier and look at the menu real quick and try to read as much as I could and then put it back down and be like, okay, yep, nobody saw that. We're all good, all good. Nobody's looking. And then look at some more. And I think it was stuff like that my wife's like, just knock it off. Just, it's very much coming out of the closet is kind of is a term that we often use in the VIP community is coming out of the closet and accepting who you really are and being okay with it and realizing that, in my case, there's two little pieces of skin in my eyes that maybe don't work as well as the person standing next to me. And that is literally the only thing that makes me different than them. And in my opinion, that is not nearly enough to make me feel less than that person.
That's amazing how when you're married, that can be the best thing for you or the worst thing for you, depending on how how you interact with your spouse, and it's growth and everything. And I've heard so many stories where people are a caregiver for someone with Charles-Bonnet syndrome and it's a struggle, or sometimes like in your case, how I know you don't have Charles-Bonnet syndrome yourself, but how the spouse has been able to help them tremendously. And more often than not, our spouses do help us because positive intent, and marriage is a beautiful thing and they know you very well and they can definitely help you. So that's good to hear that your wife was able to help you get over that hump.
Yeah.
I actually wrote that down. I like that. Don't pretend to be something you're not, so that's very powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, everybody kind of goes through that journey at their own pace and it's fine. We work with spouses too where I work. We have a peer support program and we have meetings for spouses. We call them sighted supporters. And it's important we talk about how it's important to support but not enable, because it can be very easy to just, for the spouse or the family member of a blind person to just it's just easier if I do it. I'll just do it. I'll take care of it. And we say no. Yes, it might be easier in the short term, but in the long term, it's not going to be. So support, but don't enable.
Nice.
You told me that you don't have Charles-Bonnet syndrome yourself, but you said that you came across a lot of people that actually do have the condition. So can you tell me how you first found out about the condition?
Yeah, I have. I've worked with several people over the years. So, like I said, I run an assistive technology program at a nonprofit. And so I'm usually working with seniors losing vision later in life. And that's where I've really run into it the most is some of my clients coming in and they just happen to mention things. We always kind of do an evaluation and I ask them how things are going, what they're struggling with, and that sort of thing. And it often comes up that they're seeing things randomly. And I've had some pretty strange ones. I had a lady who said she saw dancing leprechauns. I had another client who said she saw Elvis quite often. And I haven't experienced anything scary or frightening. People have said they've witnessing things that are troubling. It's always kind of annoying, comical things. And then, as I said, I've gotten questions over the years through email, people reaching out. And I am not an expert by any means. I know the basics of what it is and can kind of help them in that regard. But I always tell them, do some research because, I'm not an expert at all.
Okay, so you just kind of basically, as you had some clients of yours that would tell you about this, you just kind of like heard it through the grapevine. You just kind of came across like to realize that some of these people maybe didn't have dementia or some other kind of condition. You just kind of just found out about it, basically.
Yeah, yeah, and I tell them that it does happen, and I, as always, say, if it's something that's concerning, definitely talk with your doctor and that sort of thing. But I try to explain it of that, it's some types of visual hallucinations, and in some cases, maybe not all, but in some cases, it's just the brain's trying to, and once again, I'm not an expert, so you guys let me know if I'm totally off base here, but it's the brain's attempt to make sense of what it can't see. The brain doesn't like a lack of information, and so when it can't see something or it thinks it sees something, it tells us that this is what you're seeing, and obviously you're not.
I'm so grateful that you were patient with your patients and you took the time to find out about Charles Bonnet syndrome. And I think that's really good. And if you know something, you know it. And if not, you tell them to do research. So we have Dr. Cusick here, who is a psychologist, and he's pretty much like one of the leaders in America as far as he has support groups for people that have the condition themselves and then for caregivers, does a lot of research. So if there's anything you want to ask him, you can certainly do that.
Is there a common, like the most common thing that people see? Like the ones I've run into, it's been figures. It's been like humanoid figures of some sort. Is that a common thing, or I also hear people talk about, I see fireworks or I see rings of light. I get the rings of light, but I don't think that's necessarily Charles Bonnet syndrome. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, I think people is the most common. They talk
Okay.
about the difference between simple hallucinations and complex. People and animals are complex, and things like circles and patterns and colors are simple. But
Mm,
it seems like mostly it's people that they see.
gotcha.
And for some reason, there's people with period clothes on, and there can be nurses from World War II or soldiers or something like that. And Charles Bonnet seems to change. And feel free to chime in or correct me if you have any other thing to say, Dr. Cusick. But Charles Bonnet seems to change. And one day you're seeing people, the next day you're seeing a lot of patterns, the next day you see animals, and some people see no animals. They just see colors and things like that. So it's really challenging probably to kind of when you start to research it and try to figure out why it's different for different people and why some people get it and some people don't, and then why some people get it and it goes away. Most of the time that doesn't happen. That's rare, but it goes away. And then some people, it doesn't go away and it progresses. So it's really one of those things, I guess, because it's involving the mind, and the mind is so complex and people are so different.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, blind brains are different too. Uh, Typically, a person with a visual impairment that's pretty severe like that will start to develop a better verbal memory. And it's not just my opinion on that. I used to give people an IQ test and a memory test from the Wexler company, and they have a crosswalk technical manual that tells you what their memory should be like at a given IQ. And people with visual impairments were typically two standard deviations above that. I mean, folks at the intellectual disability area in that range, I mean, they'd have normal memories, and some of my bright as heck's coworkers would just be knocking the top off of it. But and that was I got to where I've seen that so many times. I got to where I started to expect it. And if someone did not have that, did not develop a better verbal memory, I'd ask them some questions and find out they had a substance abuse problem, which meant that their brain just wasn't flexible enough to make that change. And this, that change also happened in people with brain injuries.
Hmm.
So it wasn't just a brain insult that would stop that. It was more like something systemic and chronic like that.
I'm still waiting for my verbal memory to kick in.
Yeah.
My memory's terrible.
So, Sam, can you talk a little bit about the nonprofit that you work at and how you help with assistive technology there?
Yeah, sure. So I work in Central Kentucky, and the nonprofit that I work at is the Bluegrass Council of the Blind. We are one of Kentucky's two affiliates for the American Council of the Blind, which is a national organization. And we were founded in 75. I started working as the AT program manager in 2016. And like I said before, work mainly with seniors, and I cover the whole gamut of AT, independent living skills. We dabble in orientation and mobility, occupational therapy. I work with with people on everything. So whenever someone comes in, we do an evaluation. And as I said, seniors losing vision later in life, so they oftentimes, almost 100% of the time, are going through that grieving stage because this is something new that they've lost, and they've had vision their whole lives. They were the ones taking care of the family their whole lives, and then all of a sudden they can't do this anymore, and so they're really struggling oftentimes. So we have a great peer support program to help them deal with that, deal with the emotional side of vision loss, and get them connected in the community. But I sit down with them and I do an evaluation and just talk to them, say, what's going on? What are you struggling with? What are your goals? And then we kind of work from there. I offer training. Well, number one, demonstrations of all types of assistive technology. I'm very fortunate that because of my YouTube channel, I've acquired a nice collection of AT devices that I just keep in the office, and then I use those with my clients. And so I can show them and demonstrate a wide variety of devices. We do training on all of these different devices. We do training on computer skills having to do with accessibility and smartphones. We also have a distribution program and a loan program. So if somebody needs a video magnifier, desktop video magnifier, then we have them available to loan out, or in a lot of cases, distribute. Just give them one that they can keep and use. Kentucky is a very rural state and not a lot of low population, and so they don't have the most money, and so some of these devices are crazy expensive. So we're pretty fortunate that we have them to provide if they're needed.
Do people usually know about NVDA, Sam?
No, definitely not the ones that are new to vision loss. And we actually here at BCB, we don't work with a lot of people that are profoundly visually impaired. We are getting mostly low vision, the AMD, age-related macular degeneration, diabetic retinopathy, and so they haven't gotten to that point of needing a full-blown screen reader. We have it. We have NVDA on our computers. We have Zoom Text. We have JAWS. My colleague Richard teaches JAWS and Zoom Text and NVDA. He works with our state's vocational rehabilitation to train. So we have that ability to do that. But most of the people I see, yeah, they just need magnification, usually just magnification and some light screen reading.
We've had just a few screen readers connect with us. There's a fellow with a British accent in Florida who uses a screen reader, and it's kind of a struggle with Zoom. I get at least that's the impression I get. The whole thing about Zoom is it's a sight and sound thing. We could just all have no pictures up and it would be just fine. We could do the same thing, and it really doesn't make any sense for folks who don't see well. But that was just the way it started.
Yeah. My colleague Richard, he does a lot of his training virtually, remotely. I don't like it. I'm much better if I'm in the room with somebody. That's what I prefer to do. And but it's obviously it's not ideal. It's not possible for a lot of situations, but if possible, I'd much rather be sitting at a table with somebody working on something with them.
That's great that at this nonprofit you work with assistive technology, and then on your YouTube channel you review and show how to use assistive technology as well as other things. So that's a good connection. You're kind of like the expert and the go-to person. As a matter of fact, when I was doing my research for this podcast episode, it said pretty much your channel is the go-to channel for assistive technology for the visually impaired community. So I just wanted to thank you for that.
Thank you. Yeah, yeah. It's funny how things work. I mean, I'm sure Gary can attest that when I was working with him at the McDowell Center, who would have thought that was 20 years ago? Who would have thought that I would be where I am now? I surely didn't expect any of this, but just over the years, continuing to put the work in, it's just developed into, yeah, a lot of people consider it the number one resource for assistive technology information on the internet, basically. And I've been very fortunate to work with all the major companies. I work with a lot of the big consumer electronic companies like Apple and Microsoft and Sony and stuff, and helping them develop their accessible services and things like that. So it's been quite a ride. It's been a lot of fun.
So can you talk a little bit about the content that you have on your channel? Obviously, it's assistive technology, but you talk about other things too. Can you let people know what they can expect if they become a subscriber to your channel?
Sure. Yeah, well, like I said, I've been doing it for 10 years now. December of 2023 was my 10-year anniversary. And in that time, I'm almost to 900 videos, just videos
Oh
alone.
my goodness.
Uh,
Wow.
yeah, I know. And then if you take into consideration live streams and YouTube shorts and all that, I'm over 1,000 different pieces of content on my channel. And so I've touched on literally, I don't think it's a stretch to say every single aspect of vision loss I have made a video about. In fact, that's I've got it set to a keyboard shortcut on my computer that when I hit a certain keyboard command, it auto fills in. I've got a video for that, is what it says. Because I got tired of typing it out in emails. I've got a video for that. I've got a video for that. So I set it up to make it easier because I've done videos for everything. So yes, when in 2016 when I started working as an assistive technology trainer at the nonprofit, that's really when the channel turned towards mainly being about assistive technology. But that's by no means all it is. I like to touch on the life side of the blind life as well. So I have a ton of like how to those simple little things that a lot of people just don't know about when they start to lose their vision, little blind life hacks that we kind of figure out along the way. Well, I've make videos about that so people can learn about it much sooner. I do a lot of interviews with amazing people in the blind community and a lot of inspirational stories. Um, I have a whole series called Working Blind, where I interview people who are visually impaired and are working and successfully working so that they can hopefully inspire those in the community out there that are not working but wanting to work but aren't sure what they can do. Um, I'm sure you guys have probably gotten the question over the years of what kind of jobs can blind people do. Well, I got tired of answering that question, so I started making videos interviewing people, saying this is what you can do, and that series has been very popular as well. So there's all kinds of stuff.
I hate that question. It's like, what kind of job do you want to do is a better question.
Yeah.
And then
Yep.
let's figure out how you can do it as a blind person. You don't have to do it as a sighted person,
Yeah.
but
That's
that's hard to get around for some people's minds.
it is, but that's exactly that's exactly what my answer was always. What do you want to do? You do what you want to do. Like I said before, you do what you want to do, and we adapt the job to work for you.
I just want to say congratulations on the 10 years. That is great. And could you maybe elaborate, if possible, on the quote that you just said, the do what you want to do and make it work, some practical ways that you're able to do things like that?
Yeah. So the fact is that we live in a world of amazing accessibility, amazing assistive technology. It's not perfect. Obviously, we definitely live in a sighted world and it's a struggle, but we have incredible adaptive equipment these days, and we have a community that is really starting to embrace accessibility and equality in the workplace and that sort of thing. So, if you're interested in going to work, I always recommend working with your state's Office of Vocational Rehabilitation. It might be called that. Back when I was going through it in the late 90s, it was called the Office for the Blind here in Kentucky. Um, some Department of Rehabilitation Services, sometimes it's called, but they will help guide you in trying to find a job, or in education too. If you need to go to school, they can help with that as well. And they will set you up with someone like me that will take a look at what you've got going on, your work, and we will try to find some reasonable accommodations, is what they always say. Maybe you need a screen reader like Gary was talking about, NVDA or JAWS. In order to do your job, you need a screen reader. Or in my situation, I need a really large monitor. I need about a 43-inch 4K monitor in order to see my computer better. Those are things that we can do. Those are easy solutions to help you maintain that employment. So that's what we say. It's, what do you want to do? What are you passionate about? What are your skills in? That's what you can do. And then you rely on someone like myself to come in and help you learn how to do it as a VIP, visually impaired person.
Since you have so many years of helping people with assistive technology and you've reviewed so many apps and so many devices, have you ever thought about creating your own app or your own device?
I have, yes. I actually was just thinking about this. One of those, I was waking up, and in between sleep and wake, we always have our best ideas. And then usually it's like an hour after you've woken up, you realize that was a really dumb idea. Actually, in my in my half asleep brain, it seemed amazing, but no. But I was just thinking about this the other day, that there's an app that I think would be super helpful. I'm generally not a solution person. So I am a reviewer. I can take a look at a product and I can tell instantly what's good about it and what's not good about it. But a lot of times people are like, "Well, what would you do?" I'm like, "I have no idea. That's not my skill set. I'm not a problem solver. I'm an identifying the problem, but I'm not great at solving the problem, unfortunately." But I do, there's certain categories of devices like wearables. I could definitely take what I love about all these other individual wearables and put that together into the perfect wearable. And I would be good at that, I think. But I would need a lot of money. If anybody's out there wants to give me a lot of money to make that happen, call me.
Yeah. Is there anything that you would like to discuss that you haven't had a chance to say yet?
No, I just, like I said, it's the whole goal of the channel, my channel, what I do. It's clear that, the goal of what you guys are doing as well, which is fantastic, is just getting the information out there. I always talk about how when someone loses their vision, they don't know how to be visually impaired. Nobody innately knows how to be visually impaired. Unless you're born with it, you don't know. It's something that you have to learn. It's something that you have to be taught. It's very much like learning a skill. You almost have to apprentice under the tutelage of a master. So learning from others is what it's all about. Steel sharpens steel. So I love, I love that you guys are doing that as well. And I think it's so important.
Well, I appreciate that. And thanks again for everything that you do for the blind and visually impaired community and all the work that you're putting in and resources and all the ways that you're helping. I just appreciate that.
Thank you. And of course, like and subscribe.
Certainly, definitely. Yeah, it's The Blind Life and it's on YouTube. And you'll definitely get some good information out of this channel and help and resources and technology. And it's really a helpful channel. So how can people contact you or find out more information about you, Sam?
Sure. Yeah, it's super easy. Literally, if you Google The Blind Life, Blind Life, you will find me that way. That's the benefit of having over almost 1,000 videos out. It totally saturates the market. It's hard to not find me. But I'm also available on all the other social medias: Instagram, Facebook, X, Twitter, TikTok. Big on TikTok as well. And then I also have the podcast, the Blind Life Podcast, which is available on all your major podcast platforms, and the website, theblindlife.net. If you need one location for all of this stuff, theblindlife.net.
I'll definitely put that in the show notes, and I'm sure some people will be connecting with you, and it will definitely be a benefit to them.
Thank you. Thank you so much.